Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Data Unchained. I'm your host, Molly Presley. If you haven't listened to Data Unchained before or would like to know a little bit more about what this conversation will entail, let me tell you a little bit about the show. Data Unchained is all about how the demands for data have changed and the access requirements and location of data has really changed over the years. If you think back to the advent of the mainframe, where all data was really created in a data center, in a single computer, in a monolithic kind of fashion, and how things have evolved over the last couple of decades with cloud computing, cloud storage, Internet of Things, and data being generated at the edge. COVID, where human beings were moved to work much more remotely and with a lot more flexibility. The requirements for how data is accessed has really changed. And there's challenges and opportunities associated with that. And that's what we delve into in Data Unchained. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guest today, Peter Schroeder. Peter is the founder and CEO of Telzio. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have to tell you, kudos. I think you have the best studio environment of any of our guests so far.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you so much.
Better than mine as well as the host. I have to take a few pointers.
Put a lot of work into this one, so yeah, good to hear.
So before we talk about Telzio, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background?
Oh, how far do you want to go back?
Give us some interesting nuggets that you won't find on LinkedIn.
Okay, well, I mean, I started DJing when I was 9 years old. Then I became a reporter on Danish national TV at age 10, I think. Founded my first social media platform at age 14. Sold it when I was 18. Then became a professional DJ and founded a record label. Produced a lot of music and eventually started a phone service provider.
And those all don't seem related in some way.
But for some weird reason, they really are to me. Yeah. It's
so have I heard any of the music you've produced?
Maybe. I've made a lot of different things, both in my own name and for a lot of different artists, pretty much all over the world.
Very cool. That's awesome. So, Telzio, tell us about this company you founded and a little bit about what you do and what makes you guys unique.
Yeah. So Telzio is, if you really boil it down, a phone service provider for businesses. We have a platform that we build in-house, and the reason for that happening was really that I needed it myself. I had another project I was working on, and I needed like a hotline for that where people could call in for support. And there wasn't anything that fit the bill and that I could afford, and where I didn't have to pay extra to get the features I needed. So I just started coding it myself. I have major ADD, so I'm like, yeah, I can do that, and that was fun. So I was working on that for a while, and then all of a sudden there was a product, and I forgot to go back to making music. And I've now been doing this for 10 years. What makes us unique? That's, I mean, we are if you really boil it down, like a out-of-the-box solution like so many other products out there. But I think the main thing, besides, of course, that it's a good product and it has a stable platform that doesn't go down and all that stuff, is really that fact that we don't charge for the users or features or anything like that. I'm very much against that. I'm against this whole, pay for an enterprise plan just to get that one feature that you need that's critical to you. Like, why is it that the big companies that have already made it and making a lot of money, why do they need to get all the good stuff, the competitive features and all that stuff? So that rubs me the wrong way, and that kind of was the philosophy I took into Telzio. So instead of charging for all those things, we just charge it for the usage, and everyone gets the same feature, whether you're Facebook or Google or Samsung or any of the other big companies that we have. If you're a startup with 2 employees, you get the same exact feature and same exact product as they do.
Nice. And when you say you found the product you really needed didn't exist, what was the pain point you were looking to address?
Well, so I needed something that was really easy for me to manage because, like I said, I was working on another project. This was the main thing. I wasn't, making a product of setting up phone systems for myself. That was not my business. I just needed it to work and needed to be easy to manage and needed to be easy to make changes when I needed that. So I really just started building a little UI for, an open source PBX that I found to begin with. And then I found out, well, there's actually something here. So I started developing that more and added more features and eventually I took out that open source thing and made my own part instead. And then I had a product and started, just writing about it online, see if someone would sign up.
So how does data fit into telephone support?
Well, there's a lot of data.
And a lot of
Obviously,
requirements around it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. We hold text messages, phone call recordings, all these different things, faxes with medical data about patients that doctors send around. All this very, very personal data that we hold for our customers, it needs to be really, really, really secure and stable. And there's a lot of it. Voicemails. Think about how many voicemails are left on a daily basis in the world, and we don't charge for that feature. So think about how much data we have to hold for our customers going back to 2013 when we started. We need to structure that well and making sure that it's stable and secure, but also accessible. So there's a lot that comes into that. But I think also one thing that we were part of is something called the Telecom Infra Project. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have not.
Okay, this is an initiative by Facebook, Deutsche Telekom, South Korea Telecom, and a couple of other. Intel is also part of it, and then a bunch of small providers like us. Because the reason for this whole thing is the internet, or the capacity or the requirements for capacity on the internet today is, well, not just today, since 1992 has doubled every single year. Mm-hmm. So today is so massive that if we were to run infrastructure on things that we license from, let's say, Siemens or Ericsson or the big companies that provide this underlying infrastructure hardware, if we have to keep paying that and double it every single year, there's no way we can run a sustainable business. But our customers require that the internet gets faster and they use it more and more, so it doubles, right? So this project or this initiative is really just in the world to create a platform, an open source platform for collaborative hardware and software for telecom, so that we can build it ourselves. We can invent it and build it out together, and then go manufacture it ourselves, essentially.
And does that drive efficiencies to the end customer? Are you thinking efficiencies in how much they're spending, or is it the use of infrastructure and power and kind of limited available resources? How do you think about that?
Well, it's definitely the resources to begin with, or that's how the project started. Is the fact that we have to double our spending essentially on resources, or on the infrastructure that handles the internet essentially, the cables going across the Atlantic and all these things. Have to double that every single year, but we can't charge double to our customers every single year. Like, mm-hmm. Imagine what outrage it would be if we doubled the bill every year. So that's one thing. Like, we need to do something to be able to keep up with the demand. That's one part, and then it kind of grew from there. It's this project or this group has been part of creating the 5G specifications and these different things that are very much directly related to the consumer.
Absolutely. I think it's become front of mind, at least for me, that as technologists, we have the ability to build technology that will consume everything, right? Power, financial resources. I mean, manufacturing facilities. You just think about even just to power some of the compute farms that are being built right now. They're saying they need to build new nuclear power plants next to the compute farms. I mean, it's just like mind-blowing, right? And figuring out a way to not have us all doing bespoke things that don't drive synergies just is not sustainable in the technology world anymore. So I think it's interesting. There's analogs across all industries, and even though I'm not familiar with what this side of the telco space, it makes a lot of sense. Just curious, how does space internet fit into what you all do? Are you using mostly fiber, or will you be taking advantage of things like SpaceLink and other things like that?
Well, so we're actually agnostic when it comes to how you get your internet connection. We don't really interfere with that at all. Our service just works if you have internet, period. But that being said, yes, space internet is definitely an interesting thing, because
are they participating in these kind of global standards and collaborations?
Yeah, so we are definitely we've taken part in a lot of different projects. For example, that Telecom Infra Project that I was talking about earlier, and we try to kind of keep up with wherever the trends are going, because obviously we need to keep our project or our product running and make sure that our customers get the best possible quality. One of the things that we did, let's say 10 years ago, was to try and create new codecs so that the mobile app would sound better and work under better conditions and these different things. But that has kind of changed over the years, because now that internet that people have on their cell phones is way much faster than it was 10 years ago for once, but it's also way more spread out. So you have a bigger footprint when it comes to coverage. And I mean, I can drive to Vegas from Los Angeles through the desert and have a full connection all the way and be on this call. I couldn't do that just 3 years ago. So there's definitely things happening there. But then again, the space internet part is interesting for us, because obviously we have customers everywhere in the world, and not everywhere has as good coverage as in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about data and you have a lot of it and you're keeping it for a long time, it's coming from a lot of places, where do you store your data, if that's something you share? Like, is it cloud data? Do you have a lot of multiple copies built in? Kind of where does the data end up sitting?
Well, so it's well, everything sits in the cloud. That's part of it. We need to have it available at any given time. We don't want people to be able to have to call in or request a voicemail from 3 years ago. It should just be able to play right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all in the cloud. But for security, obviously we have it replicated to different cloud services and so on, encrypted and so on. But we also do the old school offline backups on tapes and put it in a vault under a mountain, because what happens if all these different things, right? There's so many things that could go wrong that probably can't go wrong in reality, but in theory there's a perhaps thing. And so we do take the old school tape backups like you did 20 years ago. And it's interesting how that's still the most efficient ways to store data. It's still on tape.
Yep, and that industry continues to evolve for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we can have 8 terabytes on one tape. It's crazy, right?
It is. It's massive.
Yeah. It's so crazy. But then that poses some other issues, because what do you do then when someone deletes their account and wants to delete a voicemail? How do you delete that from that tape that's under a mountain somewhere, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So we've come up with some solutions to that, obviously. But yeah, there's always interesting questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about, let's just talk about security for a minute, protecting against any kind of breach, intentional or not, and all that is top of mind for everyone right now. When you think about ensuring security across transmission lines as data is retained, who can access it? How do you guys go about that with so much data from so many locations?
It's the first thing we think about every time we do something. Every time we build some new feature, we start from a security point of view. Is this going to be secure for our customers to do it this and this way? Like, if they want to access it, how can they access it? It's the very, very first thing we think about. We are SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, all these different frameworks that we have to adhere to, and we have some processes in place in the company that are pretty strict. Even though we're a somewhat small company in terms of employee size, and we are spread out all over the world, we have to still do the same things as an enterprise with 5,000 employees have to do, and that's how we run our company. That's one thing is, and I think the whole thing about securing data, especially both, of course, in transit, but at rest, is really it's a fascinating thing for me, because obviously you have to encrypt different things, and you have to rely on your provider's encryption, hardware encryption, and stuff like that, in physical encryption. But also, what happens if someone gets access to that platform and getting a key? Is there one key to the whole kingdom kind of thing, or would they get access to one customer or a fraction of that customer's data? That's the kind of things that we think a lot about.
And you mentioned things like medical records and things like that might get faxed around. It sounds, to me at least, fiendishly complex to manage all of this with, different industries and different data requirements and whatnot. Do you have to do vertical specific things for HIPAA versus government data, or how does that work?
We don't. So the thing is, you don't have to. Some companies do because it's easier for them in certain ways, and they can charge more for it's an upsell, right? But for us, it's really just important that it's always safe because it's not less important that a plumber loses his voicemails or they get into the wrong hands than it is for a doctor. It's a different industry, but for that plumber, it means everything. So we need to make sure that everything is always safe. There's no industry specific. And then, there might be industries that are not as focused on it themselves, but that doesn't mean that they can't also be secure if they get it and they don't have to think about it if they get it from us.
I think it's the idea of all data is equal and just as important no matter where it comes from. I love that tenet, just as a company. I think that's fantastic. Equal pricing, equal access to features, and you're just
Yeah.
as important whether you have
Well,
100
I'm from
voicemails
Denmark,
or a
right?
million.
It's deep in me.
Yes, you've been raised in that kind of culture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So how does AI affecting this space? AI means so many things to different people, but where is it valuable? Is it causing any problems or risks that you're dealing with right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of low-hanging fruits and obvious products that relates to telecom. I mean, we have a big product coming out soon where our customers can put a bot in front of their phone lines to answer all incoming calls and even call out to customers and talk to them, which is trained on all your company data, all historical data going back to so on and so on. But
So the bot
you know,
learns about previous conversations or tickets or whatever,
yeah,
and
exactly,
will
hooks into
predict
your
when
support
maybe they
tickets or
need to talk
CRM. Yeah.
to you for something. Wow, that's cool.
Exactly, and yeah, it's proactive, and it can pick up on clues in terms of which customers should I call today, based on all the different data that it has access to. Much better than a sales rep could ever do, because they would have to go in manually and look at every data, at every customer account, and check
And
what's
try
going
to
on with them and so on.
triangulate it. And,
Yeah, exactly. These ones can pick up on different clues. Also, it's paired with, let's say, data from your website. Did that customer go in and do something on your website that might be some reason for me to call them? So that's part of it. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit when it comes to that. But on the backside of it, we have a lot of, we already use it a lot actually on our own platform, where for example, logs of customer calls and different things like that, we can have AI pass through that and find out what a problem might be, and do it much faster than a tech supporter could ever even probably find. So there's a lot of things there, and there's also obviously a lot of security questions, because who does those calculations? Where is that AI sitting? Are we sending it out to a third party? How do they handle that data? Are we giving something away from our customers? So obviously we don't want to do that, but there's a lot of questions that kind of are raised, and I think a lot of questions that customers or consumers should really be asking when they select a service.
and I think customers are starting to learn that for sure. Where will my data be kept, but also how will it be used? And there's value to it being used in AI, but they certainly I think they're becoming educated pretty quickly on the kinds of questions to ask. And you're like, is that going to stay just within Telzio, or is that going to make it out into maybe some other models, that type of thing? So how do
Exactly.
you manage that? Are you bringing some models in and integrating it into your technology, or how are you handling making sure the data that's in Telzio only is used in the bot that you guys are
Yeah.
using?
Yeah, we're bringing it into ourselves and running ourselves these models, because we can't trust, even though that a third party might say that they're so and so good and they have a bunch of different certifications. We, at the end of the day, we are putting our business in the hands of them. In case something goes wrong, we would lose potentially all our customers. Who knows? So we can't afford that. We can't allow that to happen. And for that reason, we're bringing things in, even though that it's a way bigger undertaking than if we just plugged into, let's say, OpenAI and used ChatGPT or something like that, right? But it's just something we can't afford.
So as we're starting to tie things up, there's a few things I want to kind of cover with you. So we've talked a lot about data and strategies for global data and data protection and all of that. I want to kind of pan back out talking about the service you provide. So when you and I were first talking, the issue of like phone calls fading out, your analogy of moving from LA or driving from LA to Vegas, and now there's there's connectivity everywhere. What are you all doing that helps to make the experience what customers need? This kind of meet the customer where they're at with the flexibility, the uptime, availability. Kind of, you said that was a core tenet of the company. I think that'd be worth talking a little bit more about.
Yeah. So one of the main things that we've spent the last couple of years on is coming up with a solution to basically meeting the demand of today's customer, and that's changing a lot. We saw it through, let's say, 10 years ago, where customers started wanting to have their favorite food delivered anytime they wanted from their favorite restaurant and so on. And then during COVID, we started seeing people using grocery shopping online even more. I don't think I've been to a grocery shop since COVID. I ordered online, right?
Yeah, that changed my patterns completely.
It
that's
completely
for sure.
changed, right? So, and that's changing for communications too. People want to communicate with their vendors wherever they want to communicate with their vendors. That time when you could just post a phone number and some opening hours and maybe an email address, they're gone. You have to answer WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Instagram and Twitter and Threads and LinkedIn and all these different things. And Joe, the plumber down the corner, he can't do that. He's out plumbing. So there needs to be a product where you can do those things in the same platform and at the same time also know that it's the same person without having to keep a complex CRM up to date. You have to know that it's the guy tweeting at you is the same guy that also texted you and called you today, so that you have the history. And you just need to focus on responding to those messages. And
I mean,
I had a good...
It doesn't sound possible, right? We've gotten so conditioned to services, like this. I'm not saying like yours specifically, but even in this space, you get behind machines and computers and there's only certain hours and you get put in a queue and you clearly are speaking to someone who you've never spoken to and never will again because, it's this massive help center, group web of people. The personalized piece while still meeting customers where they're coming from is really unique to me. I think, and the fact that you're connecting customers who are located, outside of tech hubs and that type of thing. How do you do it? I mean, do you have a huge company? Is it just taking really great advantage of the technology and tools that are available today and building a modern solution?
Yeah, we're building a new open source product. Actually, I wouldn't even call it a product, a framework for how we can know who one person is without knowing all their data. So essentially, saying I have a phone number and I have an email address, and I can now, by using the service, know that this is the same person, but not know all the other data that service holds. And that service can't be a service, by the way. No one's going to use it if it's one company that holds all data about everyone in the whole world. So it has to be a blockchain-based kind of thing where it's decentralized. It has to be everywhere, and it needs to be highly encrypted and highly scalable. So that's something that we've worked on a lot, and we'll come out with an open source framework with pretty soon. And I think that whole thing about meeting the customer where they are, that's just ties into this. It needs to happen sooner than later. There's no doubt in my mind. I had an experience myself where I was buying a car, and that car dealer, I was out there test driving. He gave me his business card because I was going to go home and think about that purchase overnight. When I got home, I sent him an email saying something like, "Hey, what does it cost if I upgrade to the larger engine?" And there was just crickets. I didn't hear back. So the next day, I went down to a competing dealership and bought a different brand, but pretty much the same car because they had what I needed. And at that time, I could have called him because I had his business card. I had his phone number, but I didn't feel like calling at that time. It was easier because I had a baby screaming and on one arm, and it was just easier to just send a quick email from my phone. Mm-hmm. So because he didn't check his email or whatever it was, I actually got a reply back 3 weeks later. But because he didn't check it at that time, he missed out on that sale.
Right.
And that could easily have been an AI responding to that. This is a very, very easy question for an AI to answer because it would have that data. That's one thing. But the other is also just you need to be where your customers want you to be whenever they need you. And that's definitely becoming more prominent.
There's a gal, her name is Roxanne Guggen, and she's a chief futurist, and she's one of those brilliant, can put weird trends together in her brain and predict where things are going. She's quite adept at it. And she was commenting last week about the monolithic approaches, and not to say they're bad, but that's just what's been developed. And I can think of them in your space and pretty much any space of the way things have been done in the past are really struggling to adapt to this world of exactly what you're characterizing, real-time responsiveness, without being incredibly human being heavy. And it takes a new approach. And Roxanne is predicting that this next wave of really successful companies are going to be the ones who are able to pluck this new technology, putting together some open source, 5G networks are readily available. AI tools are available. If you can move quickly and deploy them into a tool that is really how consumers want to work, and that there's just this rapid change in the speed that companies are evolving, and the monolithic companies who are going to try to evolve their business models will just be too slow. It will take too long. And Telzio sounds like a fantastic example of that. I'll send you a link to Roxanne, and for those of you listening to the show, I'll put a link to who she is in the show notes, because it's really interesting. This is an area she's heavily predicting right now, and she's focused on where to invest money. That's kind of her role in the world. But hey, companies like this are starting to pop up and making a huge difference in the world, and how quickly you can innovate as an end user, how quickly you can deliver your services, and take advantage of your data that's scattered all over the place. It's pretty exciting to see, and it's great to see folks like you, Peter, who just jumped on and put it together and saw some pieces come together and build a company out of it. That's super cool. Is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with as we tie things up, if they're interested? And I kind of want to pass you on to our services team here at the company I work for, and have them take a look at Telzio. But do you have a good way for people to connect to you, or something maybe they want to take a peek at if you've piqued their interest in your product?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a free trial where you can literally play around with the product, and it's actually fun. It's one of those things where people, when they actually log in and see the product, they have this eureka moment. So go do that at least, just to play around with it. I'll give you a link for the show notes, but otherwise telzio.com with a Z. And if someone wants to talk to me directly, I would love that. peterschroeder.com has all my information. And I actually like when people send me emails. Like, when did you last get a personal email? Right? Like, you get a lot of these sales spam.
Not too many.
I really don't get a personal emaal, so please.
It's like a fraction of them.
Exactly.
And you'll answer it if you get an email. You won't be like the car dealer.
For sure. No, for sure, I'll answer it. I love when I get a personal email. That's really nice. Yeah, I get really happy. That makes my day.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining the show. I hope that Telzio gives you an opportunity to getting back to doing some music and passion projects outside of tech as well. Always fun to see people who have other interests in the world. It was great to meet you and great to have you on the show.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Data Unchained, powered by Hammerspace. To learn more, visit hammerspace.com. If you have a guest you would like to hear on the show, email me at molly@hammerspace.com.